Listen, Valentine's Day doesn't make an avoidant romantic, it makes them aware. Because when the whole world is shouting love, their silence gets louder, their distance feels heavier, and the one person they thought they could leave behind suddenly feels impossible to replace. So if they pop up when you least expect it, don't panic, don't chase, don't melt, just watch. Because the real truth isn't that they texted, it's what they do after they text. Stay calm, stay powerful, and let consistency prove everything. It's one of the strangest things about an avoidant heart. You can talk to them for hours. You can explain. You can cry. You can be gentle. You can be logical. And none of it seems to break through because they are not responding to your words. They are responding to what closeness does inside their body. The moment love starts to feel like a room with no exit, their nervous system whispers, "Run!" And they listen, not because they don't care, but because caring feels like danger to them. And that's why the first key truth matters so much. Avoidant distance often collapses under emotional events, not emotional logic, because logic requires presence, and presence is what they've trained themselves to escape. Think about it like this. When you're trying to get an avoidant to understand you, you're offering them a conversation, but what their system hears is a demand. Even if you're not demanding anything, even if you're only asking for clarity, they can interpret your needs as pressure, your feelings as responsibility, your honesty as a spotlight, and a spotlight terrifies someone who learned long ago that being seen leads to being judged, being trapped, or being disappointed. So they choose distance, they choose control, they choose silence, because silence is the only place they feel powerful. It's the only place they feel safe. And that's why you can't convince them back with one more message, one more paragraph, one more explanation. Because the problem was never your ability to communicate, the problem is that intimacy itself is the trigger. Now here comes Valentine's Day or any emotionally loaded moment, an anniversary, a birthday, a holiday, a season where love is everywhere, and suddenly it's not you texting them that becomes the pressure. It's the world. It's the billboards, the couples, the roses, the posts, the "I chose you," the "I'm not alone." And it's like the universe grabs their shoulders and forces them to look at the one thing they were avoiding. The emotional truth they can ignore on ordinary days becomes impossible to ignore on a day that is built to remind people what they have and what they don't. That's why this first keynote is so important for your heart, because if you misunderstand it, you'll romanticize their return. You'll tell yourself, this means they finally realized I'm the one, but what it may actually mean is, this day activated something they can't numb, and there's a huge difference between someone realizing your value and someone feeling a temporary emotional alarm. One leads to consistent action, the other leads to a message that fades the moment the date passes. Because emotional events create contrast, and contrast creates pain, on a normal Tuesday they can distract themselves. Work, gym, friends, scrolling, anything that keeps them from sitting with the quiet thought of you. But on Valentine's Day, the distraction becomes louder and more specific. It doesn't just say life is happening, it says love is happening. And if they are alone, if they are not chosen, if they are not being held, the loneliness doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a judgment. It feels like proof. And avoidants often hate the feeling of being the one who lost, not because they are shallow, but because loss threatens their identity of control. So they reach out, not always with a grand confession. Sometimes it's subtle, a "hey," a "hope you're good," a memory, a song, an inside joke, because reaching out is a way to reduce the intensity inside them. It's a way to regulate the spike of feeling. It's a way to make the day feel less sharp. And if you answer quickly, if you melt, if you offer warmth with no boundary, the spike goes down. They feel relief. And the nervous system that was screaming danger goes quiet again. And that's when many of them disappear. Not because they're cruel, but because the emotional event has done its job. It pushed them toward you for a moment, and once the pressure is gone, their old pattern returns. I need you to hear this without it breaking you, because the goal here isn't to villainize them, it's to protect you. It's to help you stop interpreting every reach out as a promise. You are allowed to be touched by it. You are allowed to feel something. You are human. You loved them, but you are not allowed to abandon yourself for it. because if this keynote is true, then the next step is obvious. You don't judge them by what they do on the emotionally loud day. You judge them by what they do after, when the world gets quiet again. And this is where your healing becomes real, because you've probably been the one who lived in logic. You tried to be patient. You tried to be understanding. You tried to say it the right way. And every time they pulled back, you blamed yourself. Maybe I asked too much. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe I should have been cooler. But the truth is, you were not asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person at the wrong stage for something their nervous system didn't know how to give consistently. And that doesn't make you unworthy. It simply means your love was bigger than their capacity at that moment. So when Valentine's Day happens and they come back, your heart wants to make it mean something permanent because you've been starving for certainty, you've been starving for a sign, and here's the painful beauty of maturity. You can accept the message without worshiping it. You can acknowledge it without surrendering to it. You can be kind without being available in the old way. You can respond without reopening your wounds. You can say, softly, with dignity, with calm, "It's nice to hear from you." And then you can let them show you who they are, not in one text, but in a pattern. Do they make a plan? Do they show consistency? Do they speak with clarity? Do they bring accountability? Do they talk about what changed? Do they ask what you need? Do they stay present when the conversation is real? Or do they keep it vague? Do they keep it flirty? Do they keep it safe for them and expensive for you? Because an avoidant who is growing will do something different than the avoidant who is merely triggered. Growth looks like willingness, not just sentiment. Growth looks like effort that lasts beyond the holiday. Growth looks like the courage to sit in discomfort and not run. Growth looks like repair, not just re-entry. And here is the heart-touching truth I want to leave you with inside this keynote. If someone only comes back when the calendar tells them to feel, then the calendar is in control, not love. And you deserve a love that doesn't need a date to remember you. You deserve a love that chooses you on ordinary days, when it's boring, when it's quiet, when there are no flowers to hide behind, when it's just two people and the truth. So yes, it can be real that they come back on Valentine's Day, and yes, it can stir your soul. But you are allowed to hold your heart with both hands now. You are allowed to protect the most tender parts of you. You are allowed to say, "I'm not going to be pulled into a cycle by a moment," because you're not here to be someone's emotional emergency contact. You're here to be loved in a way that is steady, safe, and chosen. And if they want to be in your life, they can meet you there, not just on a holiday, but in the days that follow when love becomes a decision, not a reaction. The third keynote is the one that turns you from a person who waits to be chosen into a person who chooses wisely. And it might be the hardest truth of all, because your power is not in whether they return. It's in what you do when they do. And if you've ever loved an avoidant, you know how easy it is to forget your standards the moment they reappear. You know how quickly your heart can start bargaining. Maybe this time, maybe they're different, maybe I should just be grateful they reached out. But listen to me, gratitude is not a replacement for self-respect, and a message is not a replacement for consistency. Because when an avoidant comes back, they rarely come back with a full plan. They come back with a door crack, a little warmth, a little nostalgia, a little softness. And that softness can feel like a miracle when you've been living in silence. But that's exactly why this keynote matters. Because if you are not anchored, you will reward the smallest return with the biggest access. You will hand them your heart, your time, your body, your emotional energy, and you will call it love. But what you're really doing is reopening a cycle that already proved it could hurt you. So this is where you become brave, not by being cold, but by being clear, not by punishing them, but by protecting yourself, because there is a difference between being open-hearted and being open-door. An open heart can still have boundaries. An open heart can still require effort. An open heart can still say, "I care about you, but I'm not available for inconsistency anymore." And I know that line sounds simple, but emotionally, it is one of the most difficult things a loving person can do, because love wants to rush, love wants to pour, love wants to repair the past by overgiving in the present, love wants to prove, "See, I'm safe, I won't abandon you, I'll do it right." But you can't heal someone's fear by betraying yourself. You can't prove safety by accepting confusion. You can't build a future by ignoring patterns that already destroyed your peace. So what does power look like when they come back? It looks like calm. It looks like pace. It looks like you not being yanked out of your life by a text. It looks like you staying grounded in your day, in your routine, in your self-respect, and responding from that place. Not from the panic of, if I don't do this perfectly, they'll disappear again. Because that panic is exactly what kept you trapped. It made you perform. It made you overthink. It made you minimize your needs just to keep the connection alive. And you deserve better than a love that requires you to shrink. Power looks like letting them do the work, and that sentence might scare you because you're used to being the one who carries the emotional weight. You're used to being the one who explains, who initiates, who reassures, who smooths everything over. But if they are coming back with real intention, they will be willing to show up, not just drop a message and wait for you to do the rest. They will be willing to move toward clarity, toward accountability, toward consistency. And if they are not willing, then what they are offering is not a relationship. It's an emotional convenience. So you watch the difference between attention and intention. Attention is easy. It's hey, it's miss you, it's a late night message, it's a heart emoji, it's a wave of warmth that arrives when they feel lonely. Intention is different. Intention is, can we talk? Intention is, I want to see you. Intention is, I've been reflecting on what happened. Intention is, I know I hurt you and I want to do this differently. Intention includes a plan. It includes follow-through. It includes consistency when it's not exciting, when it's not romantic, when it's not a holiday. And here is the heart-touching part, because I know some of you are listening with a heart that still loves them, and you're thinking, but what if they truly do care? What if they're just scared? And you're right, they might be scared and they might care, but caring is not the same thing as capacity, and love without capacity becomes pain. Love without capacity becomes mixed signals. Love without capacity becomes you waiting and guessing and hoping, and that is not a life. That is an emotional prison with a beautiful memory painted on the walls. You are allowed to require capacity. You are allowed to require maturity. You are allowed to require consistency because you are not asking for perfection. You are asking for basics, and basics are not too much for the right person. Basics only feel too much to someone who benefits from giving you less. So when they come back, your power is in the questions you don't rush past, not questions you interrogate them with, but questions you quietly hold in your own mind. Do they follow up? Do they stay present? Do they make space for my feelings? Do they respect my pace? Do they show effort over time? Do they take responsibility, or do they avoid the hard parts? Because anyone can be sweet for a moment, but not everyone can be steady. And steadiness is what heals. Steadiness is what builds. Steadiness is what makes love feel like home instead of a roller coaster. And here's the part that will change you if you let it. You don't have to close your heart to be safe. You just have to stop giving it away to uncertainty. You can be warm and still be discerning. You can be compassionate and still be boundaried. You can say, it's good to hear from you, and still not jump into the deep end of emotional intimacy. You can respond without relapsing into the old dynamic where you become the one who overinvests while they stay half in, half out. Because the moment you stop rewarding inconsistency, everything shifts. You stop being a place they visit, and you become a life they have to earn. And yes, that may mean some people disappear because they were never coming back to build. They were coming back to feel better. They were coming back to test the door. They were coming back to see if they still had access, and if they disappear when you have standards, that is not a loss. That is protection. That is clarity. That is you being saved from another cycle. And if they stay, if they rise, if they meet you with effort, with consistency, with accountability, then you'll know it's not just a Valentine's Day return. It's a real shift, because real change doesn't demand you abandon your dignity to receive it. Real change respects your boundaries. Real change honors your pace. Real change is not offended by your self-respect. It is attracted to it. So let this keynote sit in your chest like a quiet promise. You are not here to be surprised into a relationship. You are not here to be pulled back into a cycle because someone texted you at the most emotionally charged time of year. You are here to be loved in a way that is stable, safe, and consistent. And if they come back, you don't panic. You don't chase. You don't collapse. You breathe. You watch. You choose. And you remember that the greatest love you can give is not to them, it's to yourself. The love that says, I will not abandon me again. Not for a moment, not for a holiday, not for anyone. When they reach out on Valentine's Day, it can feel like the universe finally answered you, like the silence finally broke for the reason you prayed for. But the second keynote is the one that saves you from turning that message into a trap, because the message you get is often less about you and more about them trying to regulate themselves. And I know that sentence can sting because you want to believe it's about how deeply they miss you, how clearly they finally see you. But sometimes what is happening is much simpler and much more human. Their inner world is loud, the day is emotionally heavy, and they are trying to calm the noise in the fastest way they know, by reaching for the person who used to make them feel safe without asking them to be fully seen. Avoidant people are often experts at self-containment, not because they are cold, but because at some point in their life, needing someone didn't feel safe, they learned that dependence equals disappointment, that expressing emotion equals being shamed, that vulnerability equals losing control. So they became the person who can handle it, the person who doesn't need much, the person who keeps it light, the person who disappears before they can be left. And if you've loved someone like this, you already know how confusing it is, because they can be deeply affectionate in small windows and then suddenly distant. When closeness asks for consistency, it's like their heart reaches and their body pulls back. So on a day like Valentine's Day, when the world is full of signals that say, you should be connected, their system can feel exposed, not romantically exposed, emotionally exposed, because holidays have a way of making people take inventory. Who is holding me? Who chose me? Who did I choose? And if they are alone, or if they are with someone who doesn't truly reach them, the emptiness becomes a sensation they can't ignore. And in that moment, reaching out to you can be less about building something with you and more about lowering the temperature of what they are feeling inside. This is why the messages are often vague. Hey, hope you're good. Just checking in. Because vagueness protects them. It gives them emotional contact without emotional risk. It lets them feel the relief of your presence without the responsibility of clarity. And if you respond with warmth, if you respond with love, if you respond with the softness they remember, their nervous system gets what it came for: reassurance, guilt relief, belonging, proof that they still matter, proof that they can still reach you, and that can feel like love to them in the moment, not because they are lying, but because they confuse relief with intimacy, and relief is not the same thing as commitment. I want you to imagine how this plays out, not in theory, but in the way it actually breaks hearts. They reach out on a holiday. You light up, you feel chosen again, you start rewriting the story. Maybe they were just scared, maybe they needed time, maybe this is the start. And then the next day or the next week, they fade, they go quiet, they get busy, they retreat, and now you're not just disappointed, you're destabilized because you opened the door to your heart and it got shut again. And the worst part is you start blaming yourself. I shouldn't have responded. I shouldn't have hoped. I shouldn't have believed. But listen to me, hope is not your weakness. Giving is not your flaw. The only thing that hurts you is giving without discernment. So this keynote is about discernment. It's about learning how to be emotionally intelligent without being emotionally available to someone who is only reaching for regulation. It's about learning how to respond without surrendering your standards, because if the message is about them regulating themselves, the only thing that will protect you is your ability to slow down and observe what happens after the initial contact. Because intention is not proven by words, intention is proven by behavior over time, and avoidance can be very sincere in short bursts. They can mean what they say in the moment they say it, but that's not enough for your heart. Your heart needs continuity, your heart needs safety, your heart needs a pattern that doesn't make you anxious, and you don't get that by falling for a moment. You get that by watching what they do when the moment passes. And here's what hurts to admit. Sometimes they are not trying to rebuild. They are trying to check, are you still mine? Not as property, but as emotional access. They want to know if they can still come back when they feel lonely. They want to know if you are still the place they can land when the world feels sharp. And if you answer too quickly, too deeply, too emotionally, you train them without realizing it. You teach them that minimal effort gets maximum access. You teach them that they don't have to do the hard work of showing up consistently, because you will do the emotional labor for both of you. But you are not a rehabilitation center for someone's fear of intimacy. You are not a soothing tool they use when they feel triggered. You are a person with a heart that has been stretched, a heart that has waited, a heart that has tried, and you deserve someone who can hold that heart with care, not just touch it when it suits them. So what do you do with a message that might be regulation, not readiness? You don't punish, you don't play games, you don't act cold to prove a point. You simply respond from a place of calm strength. You acknowledge without escalating. You keep it grounded. You stay dignified. And you let them do more than send a feeling. You let them carry a conversation. You let them show effort. You let them create clarity. Because a person who is truly coming back to build will not be offended by your steadiness. They won't be confused by your boundaries. They won't vanish because you didn't melt instantly. They will respect you more for it, and they will rise to meet you. They will be clear. They will say, "I've missed you, and I'd like to talk." They will follow through with a plan. They will show consistent contact. They will demonstrate that they're not here for a quick emotional hit. They're here for something real. And if they are only regulating, they will keep it surface level. They will flirt and fade. They will test and disappear. They will avoid the deeper conversation. They will not want to talk about what happened. They will not want to name the pattern. They will not want to confront the reality of how their distance affected you, because that would require vulnerability, and vulnerability is the very thing they're trying to escape. I know you want love, and I know you want this to be the moment it changes, but you have to love yourself enough to stop treating a check-in like a commitment. You have to stop turning crumbs into a feast. You have to stop giving your whole heart to someone who is only offering a pulse of attention. Because the sweetest thing you can do for your future is to become someone who does not panic when they return. You don't rush. You don't beg. You don't over-explain. You don't abandon your standards out of excitement. You breathe. You stay grounded. You let their actions speak. And you remember that your value does not increase because they texted you on a holiday. Your value was always there, even in the silence. And if their message is real, if it's more than regulation, if it's the beginning of growth, then they will stay not just for Valentine's Day, but for the ordinary days after, when there are no roses, no posts, no pressure, just two people and the truth. And that's where love is either proven or exposed.